Hello everyone, welcome back to the weekly race guide. It's week 37 of the year and we have 3 interesting races. Now you're probably already going, Tidge, how the heck do you know the cars that are being picked by Polyphony? Because race A and C, they are picking the cars. However, I don't know, and we're going to make some educated guesses. And of course, this video is all about giving you a feel for the races and a feel in terms of the track, if we can offer a track guide. Now we're here at race A at Laguna Seca. So we randomly picked one of the N400 cars. Everyone was allowed to pick whatever they want as long as it meets N400, and we just experienced the race. So I can talk you through what to look out for, where to potentially make overtaking moves, and any mistakes that might happen or things to watch out for. Now with this race, let's have a look at the race details then. It is 4 laps in length. It's a grid start and we are on sport soft tyres. Now you can see we've just changed these logos slightly, so fuel and tyre wear time 0 as it always is for race A, and then right at the bottom it says adjustable. That's right, Kudos Prime is reporting that this race is going to be adjustable settings, which makes doing a track guide pretty impossible in terms of doing one specific for the N400 category. However, just for you, I also have the Ultimate Track Guide series, which we have done at Laguna Seca, so do check out that video, it's in the description for you. It taught you through every braking marker possible on this circuit that you can use to your advantage. So if you are wanting to do this, if you are a tuner, which I'm assuming you're going to be very happy for this race, do check out that Ultimate Track Guide video in the description. Without further ado though, let's jump to the race and let me talk you through some tips and tricks here at Laguna Seca in the N400 category. So here we are at the start of the grid. Look at that. Will picked the Tundra, of course. As I say, we picked a mixture of cars. We don't know what car it's going to be. Tuning is allowed. So the nice thing is here we've got lots of different cars with lots of different tunes. So let's see how we get on with the race. It'll hopefully give you a good feel about the race. Now, of course, at the start with a grid start, use traction control on 1, get ready, and just plant your foot and off you go. Turn it off just before you change gear, and you should gain no disadvantage from using it and all the advantage. So you can see quite quickly, mixture of cars, we're all over the place here, but heading down towards turn number 1 with a grid start, you're going to have to be so careful. This is where you're going to have serious impacts with penalties and SR downs into that first corner. You can see here, you know, this is a lobby where everyone is racing clean and trying to race clean, and we still had lots of little contacts. Remember, 2 contacts and it is an SR down completely red, so just be careful of that in race A. Continue on anyway, and you can see it's very crowded at the moment, lots of little knocks here and there and everywhere. Obviously with different setups, people are going to have very different braking zones, very different cornering speeds versus everybody else, irrespective of them being in the same car or not, because they're literally going to have different suspension setups, different ride heights, which will mean you corner differently and you will brake differently, which is why I can't do a track guide per se in terms of the N400 category. Be careful coming to this left-hander, of course, because it can get very sketchy, but we'll show you that in a little bit anyway. It just gets sketchy in here, if I can speak today. And then obviously the corkscrew, the deadly corkscrew, where I nearly rammed Ramster off. We see a Porsche there already spanned right at the top of the corkscrew, and the car's getting very unsettled. So obviously suspension setup going to be key on the corkscrew. Getting it right will obviously give you a lot of lap time as we then head towards this right-hander. And you can see we're having actually a pretty good race in the grand scheme of it, but it's lots of little contacts. So if you are worried about your DR or getting a DR reset from your SR, this probably isn't going to be good for you, to be honest with you, because irrespective of driver rating, people are going to be all over the show in terms of their times, with their setups, etc. So you could end up in a lobby where somebody is very high DR but has no setup, so they'll be cornering very differently to somebody who's a tuning god and on a lower DR. So I say it's going to be a bit sketchy in that sense, so I would argue probably want to avoid, but it's entirely up to you. As I say, tuners, you are probably very happy for this one. Go out and enjoy it, but just be careful of those little knocks, as we got a little knock there with Ghostly. Let's advance a tiny bit further on in the lap now. So I talked about this left-hander being critical, and I've talked about it many times when we come to Laguna Seca. So up ahead, if you notice, the Porsche gets it slightly wrong there. Bex gets it all wrong, goes for a little spin to Narnia. That's how you actually end up in Narnia. You just keep spinning until you get 88 G-force, and then you will just automatically spin. You see Ghosty there, goes a little bit deep at the corkscrew, hits Matman there. Now that is another critical area you have to be careful for. People braking at the corkscrew, obviously with the adjustable setup, people will be able to brake very differently. I normally brake before the crest. Somebody may be able to set up the car that you can brake on the crest. Therefore they have much later braking, so your radar going to be very critical here. Now, going into this first corner, Will said this, I said it while I was on stream. Every time I got to this first corner in this category, the braking zone seemed to change massively. Whether it was at the cones or whether it was just after, I seem to wildly change my braking zone. So obviously the setup will help with that, but just keep that in mind when racing. See Ghosty there on my inside now as I head up towards this right. You have to be careful there of Ghosty on the inside. Ghosty gives me room on the exit here as well. Now this corner coming up, this is one of the key overtaking areas. I've talked about this in that track guide. This is one of the best overtaking areas round the outside. So Ghosty nails that perfectly. So obviously I've got to give room anyway. It's a cambered corner. It's a lovely place to make moves. Now obviously I've talked about this corner twice already. I'll talk about it again. If you get this right, you can actually make overtaking moves up towards the corkscrew. See, Ghosty got a little bit of oversteer there. Straightens up. I carried a little bit more speed there. Heading up the hill, so I managed to get that position heading towards the corkscrew. But it is a critical corner to get right there with the braking zone, this corkscrew. So overlay if you feel necessary, and be careful on the exit here, as you will see shortly. So final lap now, catching up to the Tundra of Will. So we're coming in towards the corkscrew. Again, you see that overlay in there beautifully. Keeps the car straight. And as we come down here, my car decides to go full oversteer, full pleb mode, and spin me out there. So I'm going to lose a load of places here. You can see penalties again being an issue. Be careful cutting the corkscrew, of course. So just be careful of that as you go down the corkscrew. Obviously suspension setup will change how the car reacts quite drastically there. So just be warned about that as we go for a move on the RX-7 here of Tsuchiya in towards the braking zone. And not quite got it done. And as we leave that corner, that is the race here at Laguna Seca. So as I say, if you're a tuner, it's probably heaven for you to actually have a daily race for tuning. For me personally, I think you're going to have too many knocks to have a very pleasant race, and there's possibility of DR resets. There's always possibility of DR resets, I suppose. So be very careful. That radar watch is going to be critical. Let's jump to race B now, where we do know the settings and we do know the cars, and we can have another fun little race. Welcome to Lego Maggiore then, and we are on the GP circuit for this one, and if you can tell in the background we are racing in the Group 4 category, but we will have a look at the cars in just a second. Now in terms of the race details, we are racing 3 laps here, and believe it or not, this is actually a shorter race than race A, which I find mind-boggling. It really should be 4 laps this. I don't understand why it's 3 laps, but we continue all the same. It's a rolling start here, and we are on racing hard tyres. Now in terms of the cars, as I said, we are in Group 4. Now last time we were here in Group 4, the FF's very strong here, lots of little straights there, some acceleration zones there which will help them greatly. So an FF car will be strong here, don't get me wrong. RCZ is probably going to be the top of the FF cars. What I would pick though, if I was you, instead of going for an FF car, is I believe the Viper is probably going to be one of the strongest cars here, you know. And it's been the Viper for a couple of weeks now. It's a very strong Group 4 car, and we all picked it in the race, and I'll show you the race, because actually the race, we had quite a fun one. It is a fun race, a very wide track, allows you to race, but as I say, FFs are going to be very strong here, so if you hate the FFs, you may have to venture towards that. It just depends how you feel about Viper and potentially other Group 4 cars. But let's jump to the race now. I'll talk you through some tips and tricks here at Lego Maggiore GP. So here we are at the start, and there we go. We have an old Tidgney Racing livery there, hosted by Ghosty on that McLaren 650S. As always, where you can pick whatever car you want. There's the grid for you that everybody decides to pick. Obviously, this is our second race, so more people saw that the Viper was good, because I think Tsuchiya won the first race in the Viper. So more people went with it, and this is why I also recommend it as well. I chose Viper in the first race. I do think it's one of, if not the best Group 4 cars at the moment, as an average, and literally as a manufacturer as well. It's really good. Anyway, with the race, you don't have to worry about the last corner. You won't have any grip issues. You can literally just kick off you go, foot to the floor, and round you go. And as I say, there'll be no grip issues there at all. You have to worry about tyre temps because there's no tyre wear. It's a flat out race. It's 3 laps. It's a very, very fast race. Now, as you head towards turn 1, again, no need to worry unless somebody just doesn't brake and then they hit you. Otherwise, you're just going to close up very nicely to the car in front. And as we go through the first half of the lap, this is when we start to get closer and closer and closer. You can see that up ahead as well. We are getting closer and closer and closer to cars in front. It's going through the left and then into the right. Now you can cut the right quite a lot here. You've got to be careful of the curb. Bex goes on the curb there. You can see how it affects the Ferrari a little bit more than it would the Viper, just because the Ferrari is MR while the Viper is FR. Heading down towards this right-hander. Obviously, we're now getting into the stage of the race already where you could potentially make moves. You can see our clock gone for a move on Bex on the inside. While all the same, we're getting closer and closer and closer 2 other cars in front of them. So it's a big Constantino effect. I suspect this won't happen as much in the actual race, mainly because obviously you qualify for that. In here, we just jumped on very quickly. See somebody losing the rear end through that right-hander. You do have to be careful when you do cut that. If you're in an MR car, it's over-rotating a little bit. But we come through here and we're actually going to have a bit of racing action now. So obviously slipstream a primary factor here. This is why the FF cars are also good here. This long straight here. So our clock goes to the right. Bex has to then back out of it. I hit Bex. I get overtaken by Will then. So heading up to here, it was like, okay, well everyone's going to try and go deep here. So I'm going to try and get on right on the inside, which I do there. And I managed to get a couple of positions here. And I'm going to try and get past Will. We'll see if we can do it. Heading up to this left-hander. And we're all good. We can just pull in behind Will nice and easy. And see if we can get anywhere further up this grid. Now you can see, we can still see a lot of cars in the distance, if I can speak again. Literally, as I say, 3 laps, not a lot to do. So if you're doing a last to first challenge, you can't do it on B-Race. It's impossible to do it unless somebody absolutely nukes everybody off and then it's nice and easy. You see I had a little bit of an off there, a little bit of a mistake. You do have to be careful of that. Obviously 3 laps, you're not going to have time to recover those mistakes as we go off to Narnia again. So what you are going to see up ahead in a second is Bex overtake me, but if we look very much into the distance, I'll zoom in for you here. You see W1 completely outbrakes himself, then fires himself across the first corner. Now it's actually a very good way to not hit anybody. He obviously outbroke himself, decided, okay, I'm going to hit people here, I'm just going to flat out go into the corner. And while it looks very funny, it's at least sportsmanlike. Now heading up here, look at this, what a race we've got going on here now. Heading into the left then, let's see what we can do. We've got Bopio there on the left in the Hyundai Genesis. But with a Honda livery. It's actually a touring car livery, I think. So we're just on the inside there, so you've got to be careful making moves there, 100%. But yeah, BTCC livery there from Bopio. Fair play with that one. It does run wide now, unfortunately. They're coming onto this back straight. So now we've got one bull in front of us in the Atenza. Atenza probably not the best of cars here, but we're going to go for a move down the inside into this right-hander. Obviously, very big primary overtaking spot, this one. Get on the inside, use that camber to your advantage, and we accelerate through. One ball goes off into the grass, that's a bit unfortunate. Little Nicky's had a bit of an issue there in the Jag, and we're now behind this anime GTR of Gohan. So we're going to try and get a move done here. So we've got a bit of momentum on the GTR. A little bit of a tag, nothing major, just gives me enough room there. So now we're going to go round the outside. How about that, folks? Round the outside, we just need to then nail it on the second one. And then what we're going to do now is actually going to go into a lap guide. Yes, we are going to do a lap guide in this. Even though there's the ultimate track guide that I've already done for Lego Maggiore, that's in the description if you really want to dig deep. You know, if you've got a different car and these brake points don't work for you, check them out or check that video out. This is a quick guide that should give you some very quick initial brake markers to look out for on race B. So heading towards turn 1, a very obvious one, the blue van. I've used it loads of times. It's the perfect brake marker for turn 1. Look for that blue van as it goes off camera. Hit your brakes, drop to your relevant gear. Happy days, you make the first corner. You see Bex go for a move down into turn 1. That's also the primary overtaking spot here. There's 2, there's the hairpin. There's a brake marker for turn 2. It's that white mark on the right side at the very edge of it. Just start dabbing your brakes. You can see I've gone on the brakes now. In towards this right hander. You want to keep it tight as well. You want to try and just like get round and then just get out of it as fast as possible. It's a full 180 degrees pretty much, and through we go on Bex. So now we continue on towards this left. It's just a bit of a lift one. You want to get to the left as fast as possible, and then use that coloured barrier on the right hand side. The way it changes colour, the orange to the green, that's your brake marker, and then you want to sort of trail brake in towards the corner, because what you want to try and do is cut the corner a little bit if you can. So you see I go for a big cut here. You notice the car gets a little bit unstable, not as much as it did with Bex earlier on, because this is an FR car, not an MR car. Now heading towards this right-hander, make sure you do not run close to the left-hand side. There's the black lines there in the middle, they're the ones I use. You can also use the grey curb on the left that you may have seen. But if you look in the distance, Jonas has gone a little bit too close to the left-hand side, and it goes to Narnia there. I'm not sure what car Jonas was actually in there. But through we go, we're going to head up the hill now. So we're looking to try and catch up to our Clark here. So on the right-hand side, on the curb, this is where you're looking for your next brake marker. Big black mark on the curb there. That is what you want to use. Basically, normally it's just dab with the brakes, drop a gear, and try and use a lot of the inside curb. So you can see that here now. Use a lot of that. So I had to go back up to 4th there. You cut this a lot. Don't cut it as in don't go over the red and white curbs. As long as your tyres are on the red and white curbs, you should be fine. Through here you go flat out. Now if you're in an FF car, you may have to lift a little bit. Otherwise you should be golden. and you should be able to flat out. So heading now down towards the hairpin. Very nice, easy point here. I say it's a good overtaking spot, this as well. So on the left hand side, we've got loads of markers here, but I'm going to use the flag marker there as my brake marker. It's nice and easy, very easy to spot. Nobody can wipe that out either. So we're just going to hit that now. And then you want to use all the camber on the inside. Don't use as much as I should. Be careful next hit with that gravel. We saw Womble get impacted by that earlier on. As we now head up the hill, so flat out now until the double right, basically. You just want to take a nice easy line here. Don't ease off the steering too early because you will go into the barrier. But it's nice and easy there for me, a very optimum line. As we head down into here, so you notice I'm already full on the brakes here. I broke a little bit too early. I'm actually looking for that black mark a little bit later on, the last black mark here. So what you are going to notice with my car is I'm going to have to lift on the brakes a little bit here. You notice that, trail braking, then we nail it, bang on. So as we continue through that first one, end of the curb there, you got to be careful. As you saw earlier on, I made the mistake of running too far to the left. End of the curb there, you're going to dab the brakes again and turn in. Now if you can get your wheel hooked on the inside of the curb, which I'm going to try and do, I don't quite do it there, it'll actually make you turn a little bit better. But even so, we do it a little bit better than R Clark. Into this last corner, it's the end of the curb. Now I can't mark it here because I'm right behind R Clark, but it's the end of the curb essentially. Dab your brakes, chuck it in, try and use as much of the curb on the inside as possible and head towards the line. And that is race B in a nutshell. It's a very, very fast race. It's faster than race A. I don't quite understand the logic behind it, but even so, hey, we get fastest lap there as well. And you can see Viper won again. So the Viper, a very strong car here in race B. Let's head to race C then, which is another interesting combo. Welcome to Japan then, and Fuji, and yes, we are racing here once again, but we're in an interesting combo. Well, what we believe might be an interesting combo anyway, because we're not quite sure of the cars we are going to use. We've made a guess here. I think Key made a similar guess on his stream. Everyone, when I was doing this, they said Key made the same suggestion, so two people making the same suggestion. You know, it seems like it will be this, so apologies if it's not. So we are at Fuji and we are in Group C cars, which is essentially the Group 1 cars, but the old Le Mans cars. But before we have a look at them in a little bit more detail, let's have a look at the race details, which are 13 laps in length. We have a rolling start, no need to worry about traction control or anything like that. We are on racing hard tyres. Fuel usage is ×2 and tyre wear is ×4. So nice and easy for everybody there. Nice straightforward race. We do test pit stops in this, but we'll get onto pit stops during that race. But yes, we are using Group C cars. Now, everybody chose a variety of cars in this. So the Mercedes was chosen, the Porsche, the Nissan. I chose the Mazda. Personally, the Mazda felt really nice. It's very controllable, and it could easily get to the end of the race. So my pick for this one was the Mazda 787B. I'd say if they decide to use a completely different setup of cars, apologies in advance. But we're going to use the Group C cars, and we're going to get a feeling for the race with the Group C cars. Let's jump to that now, and I'll talk you through some tips, tricks, a lap guide, and whether you should pit or not. So here we are at the start of the grid, and as I say, this is an unbelievably good looking grid. And as I said as well, everyone chose everything, so it was just to get an idea of which cars are strong and which cars aren't strong. The Mercedes was the most chosen the most by the most people, but even so, we're in the Mazda because I love that noise. Oh my god, the rotary of this Mazda is unbelievable. I always go to it, as you guys know. Anyway, we kick off the race, and as you can see, we're going to be on the start finish straight here, so no need to worry about traction control. Now, we do have tyre wear, as I was saying earlier, so you will have to warm up your tyres on the start-finish straight. So as you see the countdown come in, and off we go. So we do have a gear delay change as well. You can see that there. Joe just got that slightly wrong, so we're going to overtake Joe there in the Porsche. But you can see every time we change gear, there's a delay. So sometimes we won't want to change gear where you normally would. We start to warm up tyres. Let's do a few people up front. Heading towards turn 1, because it's a rolling start, you shouldn't have to worry too much, but some people will miss their braking zone. You can see there are some side-by-side action going on there. Bex loses the rear end slightly as well as we continue on now down towards turn number 2. And as I said, or as we showed earlier, the Constantino effect starts to happen here. Obviously, most last to first challenges start at this one. And it is possible here to do that, I think, because the cars are harder to drive than the other cars. As you see the Jaguar go off there into somebody else there, big crash. We had to stop the car. Bex goes round, and then we help Bex go a bit further around there, and Bex sent Bex to Narnia. But even so, we carry on. As you can see, more carnage happening there. Womble having a bit of an issue. Somebody was really far off there. They're going to have dirt on their tyres. Do they survive? They do indeed. It was Will, I think, and Jonas has gone off there in the Jag, so we've got to go around the outside of Jonas. chaos. And this is what you should expect in the daily race, if indeed it is the Group C cars, which I believe it will be, is that these are hard to control. Lots of oversteer. There's no hybrid there. There's not a lot of downforce, so the rear does come out very easily on these cars. You can see a lot of twitchiness there. There's Tidgney there, the South African, gets all sorts of sideways, unstable there. So as I come through, I'm in third gear at the moment. I was testing third gear because of that gear delay change. It's better to be in second, just a heads up now. You lose too much power trying to stay in third versus the gear change delay. But you can see we've got a run on the South African here now, heading towards turn 1. This is where the critical turn 1 is, lap 2. You can see all sorts of action up ahead. This will be like that everywhere. Tidgney misses braking point, hits Gohan, and now is just on a course to no man's land. But apparently, physics don't count towards South Africans. Maybe it's because they're on the bottom side of the earth, I don't know, but apparently you can go into cars and you just bounce right off them. But even so, we continue on, up into P6 now. Super GT's level and position of P6. So we've made quite a few places here, and that just shows you how hard these cars are to drive. And if you have a look at that mini map in the top right, the spread of the field is huge, and expect this in the races as well. Now as you go through the week, obviously that gap will decrease, but at the start the gaps are going to be absolutely massive because they are hard to control, these cars. They really are hard. So heading towards the chicane, Shell T outbrakes himself but gets out of the way there. Straight lines of braking, gets out of the way. It doesn't hit Zaskar or Will. Excuse me. As we then head into the right-hander, we're right behind Zaskar now, and Zaskar goes off. So I play a little bit of a ploy here. I know Zaskar's going to have dirt on their tyres, so I just want to go for the cutback instead because they won't be able to defend from it. Straighten up, flat out, and that's how you drive these cars. It's point and squirt, get around the corner and then flat out. Do not try and accelerate full throttle mid-apex because you're just going to spin. And that's one of the critical tips I have in Group C cars, in any Group C cars. Literally, wait until you're straight and then floor it. The advanced skill, obviously, is as you release the steering to floor it, because then you're controlling an oversteer and a drift. And because the tyre wear is not that high, you can do that in this race. So it's something to look out for. Zaskar there just outbrakes himself a little bit. That's what you've got to be careful of. Slipstream, big impacts on these cars, will affect the braking zone, so keep an eye on your radar. So we advance pretty far in the race now. As you see, the gap has just exponentially increased there on the minimap. It's absolutely huge. Botyo just struggling there out the chicane. Very hard corner to get right in Group C cars. Very, very hard because it's you've just got in a lot of power. There's no downforce there because there's no speed at all. As Botyo goes slightly too deep there. Very common mistake there to do as well. But yeah, no downforce at low speeds. Plant your foot, you're just going to get lots of wheel spin, lots of oversteer. So you can see I'm just managing it in that second gear. I start to release it early. Notice how as I release, I'm then full throttle and the car oversteers instantly. I'm controlling the oversteer there. And that's the critical thing you're going to have to learn this week with the Group C cars. Right, we're going to go into a track guide now. Because I think this is a fairly good lap, to be honest with you. So heading towards turn 1, 150 metre board, a lovely little marker there. It's where the cones are as well, so if you use the cones, happy days. Both of these work well. You're braking just before that. As you see, I've just got on the brakes there, a bit of overlaying happening there as we head towards turn 1. So second gear, do not go to first gear at any point in the lap in a Group C car. But sorry, out of there, happy days, and we're going to head towards turn 2. Now I know Fuji is very easy to do these corners because it's mainly brake markers, so we're going to brake after the 100 metre board, but just after. It's basically where the cones are, essentially. The cones are very helpful here with this combo, but once the 100 metres gone, then brake, third gear, clip the curb there. Be careful of the curb glitch on the exit there. Now this corner, never brake for it. This is my rule of thumb. I always say this, don't brake for it. Balance the throttle as I'm doing here. And then what you want to do, you want to aim for the 50 metre board. As you've then got the aim, you're then going to start braking. You can see that there. You can use the curb on the left hand side. I don't. I'm just looking for that 50 metre board to get an idea of where I need to brake. So obviously I'll start braking now. And then I'm going to turn in, click the curb, and then I want to accelerate out. Now, if you can be really aggressive on the throttle, you'll gain so much time on that corner. It's a very critical corner in these cars. Because, and you can control the oversteer, as I say. It's just a very hard one to do. Now, the chicane, Dunlop sign, nice and easy, just as the right hand side of that gets to your edge of your screen. You're just going to hammer on the anchors. You're going to drop to second gear. Don't go to first, as I say, because if you go to first, you can have to jump to second very quickly. So just stay in seconds, keeps the car controllable, and be careful of this curb on the exit. You'll notice a lot of the time cars will get unstable. The lamppost on the right then is your brake marker for this right-hander. I always use this lamppost. It's in every guide I've ever done, I think. It's so handy, and it's not going to get wiped out, so just use that one. And again, you're just going to balance the car a little bit there, straighten up, then accelerate round. And then what you can use there is the end of the curb on the left. That's your sort of marker there. And you're going to just basically trail brake for the entirety of this. All you're hoping for is the car to just slowly turn in and meet the apex. And you can see that here as I turn in. Lovely little clip of it. Accelerate out. Full throttle once I'm straight. Final corner, right side, right where that orange dab or paint is at the end of the barrier. That's what you're using then for the final corner. Nice and easy. Now, second gear, this one. As I say, I did try third gear, but you're too low in the power band for it to work. So second gear, and then again, accelerate as quick as you can out of there. Obviously, get used to the car first, get used to the oversteer, predict the oversteer, and then you'll start to get faster and faster and faster very quickly in these cars. Just caught up to Ghostly now, so we're going to have a bit of a race with Ghostly here. So, Ghostly obviously runs a little bit deep there, so we're going to try and come back at him. We can obviously accelerate a bit quicker than Ghostly there because he went too deep, doesn't hit the apex, we point and squirt, and we can go here. So we're going to have a bit of side-by-side moment with Ghostly. Now, in terms of the pit stops, you're probably going, Tidge, you've not spoken about it yet. You would normally pit around lap 6 or 7 for efficiency. Will's going to pit for us at the end of lap 9, so we'll look at that in a second. Side-by-side with Ghostly, though, heading towards turn 1. This is where you really need radar usage. Ghostly on the inside here. Ghostly gives me just enough room on the exit there. Lovely stuff, actually, a lot of room there. But because we point and squirt, accelerate out, we've actually got that position. And we get to keep that position as well as we chuck it into the left once again. Lovely line through there. Again, be careful of the curb glitch, it's annoying. And you can see, again, as I say, I don't use the brake here. I really am against using the brake on that corner. It's just annoying. So Will is 4.6 seconds ahead and he's going to go into the pits here. Where does Will come out, you're probably wondering? Well, Will is going to come out around about 2 seconds behind Ghostly, okay? So I think it's around 7 seconds, this pit stop, 7.5 seconds. So obviously that's quite a lot of time to gain towards the leader. Now obviously you would pit on lap 7 usually, so you'd actually have a better use of both sets of tyres. We get to the end of the race, he's 6 tenths behind me. Is it worthwhile pitting? If you want to deal with some traffic, yes, as we go for a little spin at the end there. If there's a lot of people spinning their cars, it's also worth it because you'll have a lot of grip. If you're struggling with oversteer, again, it's worth it to do it as well. But that's going to be it for me now, folks. 787B, me and Will both said would probably be the better car. Pick what you like in terms of the Group C cars. Have a fun week, have a fun race. If this is completely wrong in terms of car choice, I apologise. PD haven't told us what it is. But that's going to be it for me now, folks. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks to all the drivers who took part. And I'll see you again very soon in another video or live stream.